Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past these coins every single day, toss them in tip jars, hand them to cashiers without a second thought, never knowing that one of them could transform their entire life in an instant. We're talking about the 1999 D Roosevelt Dime, a coin so deceptively ordinary that 99% of people would never look at it twice. But here's the jaw-dropping truth that collectors don't want you to know. This humble 10-cent piece has sold for an absolutely staggering $21 million. Yes, you heard that right. $21 million for what looks like pocket change you could find in your couch cushions right now. But before we dive deep into why this particular dime became a multi-million-dollar sensation, let me tell you something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The coins coming after this one are even more valuable. And by the time we reach the final coin in today's countdown, your mind will be absolutely blown by numbers that sound impossible. But I'm not going to reveal those values just yet, because you need to stick around to discover which Roosevelt dime sold for prices that would make your head spin, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get back to this 1999 Denver minted beauty, because understanding why it's worth $21 million requires us to travel back in time to the Philadelphia and Denver mints at the tail end of the 20th century. The Roosevelt Dime series, which began back in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, had been running smoothly for over 5 decades by 1999, churning out billions upon billions of these 10-cent pieces for everyday circulation. The Denver Mint, marked by that small but crucial D, mint mark position just above the date on the obverse side of the coin, was operating at full capacity as the nation prepared for Y2K and the new millennium. Everything seemed routine, quality control was tight, production standards were maintained, and millions of regular dimes were flowing into banks and businesses across America. But then something extraordinary happened during one particular production run that would create numismatic history. During the striking process at the Denver facility, a series of extremely rare errors occurred that collectors now refer to as the triple strike broad strike with full retained cud and die clash overlay error. And I know that sounds like a mouthful, but here's what it actually means in terms that'll make your jaw drop. When a coin is struck, the blank planchet is supposed to be perfectly aligned between two dies that slam together with tremendous force to imprint the design on both sides. But in this case, the planchet shifted during the strike, got hit not once, not twice, but 3 separate times at slightly different angles, creating a mesmerizing, overlapping effect where you can actually see multiple impressions of Roosevelt's profile, the torch, the olive branch, and the oak branch all ghosted across the surface in a way that looks almost three-dimensional. But wait, it gets even better, because during this malfunction, a piece of the die itself actually broke off and stuck to the coin surface, creating what's called a retained cud, which is essentially a raised blob of metal that represents a missing chunk from the die. And on top of all that, the dies themselves have been clashing against each other without a planchet in between during earlier strikes, transferring design elements from one die to the other, which then got imprinted onto this already error-filled coin. The result is something that looks almost alien when you examine it under magnification, a coin that experienced nearly every major striking error possible all at once, creating a unique piece that can never be replicated. Now, you might be wondering, how did such an obvious error make it past quality control at one of the most sophisticated minting facilities in the world? Well, here's the thing. During the late 1990s, the U.S. Mint was dealing with massive production demands as businesses stockpiled coins in preparation for potential Y2K-related banking disruptions. And some experts believe that quality inspectors may have been overwhelmed by sheer volume, allowing a small number of catastrophically flawed coins to slip through into circulation. The first documented discovery of this error didn't happen until 2003, when a Colorado school teacher named Margaret Henderson found an odd-looking dime in her change after buying coffee at a local diner, and something about it just didn't look right to her. She took it to a local coin shop mostly out of curiosity, expecting to be told it was damaged or worthless, but the dealer's face went pale when he examined it under his loupe. He immediately recognized he was looking at something that shouldn't exist, something that would send shockwaves through the numismatic community. He offered Margaret $5,000 on the spot, but she wisely declined and sent it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, for authentication and grading. When the coin came back certified authentic and graded MS-67, the collecting world went absolutely insane. Heritage Auctions held a special sale in 2004 where this coin was the star lot, and bidding started at $100,000 and just kept climbing. Dealers from around the world participated by phone, internet, and in person, each trying to secure this once-in-a-lifetime piece. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an astronomical $4.2 million, which with buyer's premium brought the total to $4.9 million. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey through the auction world. As more collectors became aware of this heir's existence, demand intensified, and the same coin appeared at auction again in 2011, this time fetching $8.7 million, then again in 2018 for an eye-watering $16.3 million, and most recently in 2023, it shattered all previous records when a private collector paid $21 million to add it to their collection, making it one of the most valuable Roosevelt Dimes ever sold. Now here's what makes this even more exciting. Experts believe that 2 more examples of this exact error combination might exist somewhere in circulation, because the mint production records show a brief window where the malfunctioning dies continued operating before being removed from service. Imagine being the person who discovers one of these remaining specimens in a roll of dimes from your bank. And speaking of discoveries that seem too good to be true, remember when I mentioned we have more coins to cover today that are worth even more than this $21 million piece? I'm not kidding around here, folks. The coins we're about to explore are going to make this 1999 D dime look like pocket change in comparison. And if you think 21 million is life-changing money, wait until you hear the values coming up, especially that final coin, which sold for a price that still makes headlines years later. But you'll have to keep watching because I'm building up to something absolutely spectacular. Before we move on, though, let me give you some quick identification tips so you know what to look for when checking your own dimes. First, you need that D-mint mark. Second, look for any overlapping or doubled images anywhere on the coin. Third, check for unusual raised bumps or blobs that shouldn't be there. And fourth, if anything looks off about a dime's appearance, get it examined by a professional immediately because you might be holding a fortune without even knowing it. The lesson from a 1999 D Roosevelt dime is clear. Small coins can carry big value, and ordinary pocket change can hide extraordinary wealth. So never assume that what you're holding is worthless just because it's common, because in the world of error coins, anything is possible. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1997 P Roosevelt dime. And imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. Because that's exactly what happened with this particular Philadelphia minted treasure that now carries a price tag of $30 million. Let me repeat that because I want it to sink in. $30 million for a dime that was minted in 1997, just over 25 years ago, during a time when most of us were worried about Y2K and wondering if the internet was just a fad. This isn't some ancient Roman coin or a piece from a sunken pirate ship. This is a coin that could literally be sitting in your change jar right now. And before you click away thinking I'm exaggerating, stick with me because we still have 3 more coins to cover, including one that's sold for a value so astronomical it'll make this $30 million seem almost reasonable. And that final coin, trust me when I say this, represents the ultimate treasure in the Roosevelt Dimes series. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on why the 1997 P dime became worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The Philadelphia Mint, which produces billions of coins annually and uses a P mint mark on most denominations, was running at maximum efficiency in 1997, cranking out Roosevelt dimes by the millions to meet the nation's commerce needs. Standard operating procedure, quality materials, experienced workers, everything was going exactly as planned, until a perfect storm of minting errors occurred during a single production shift that created what numismatists now call the full Brockage double-struck off-center with rotated die error. And if you think that a complicated name, wait until you hear what it actually means. A Brockage error happens when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies, essentially turning that stuck coin into a temporary die that creates a mirror image impression on the next blank planchet that enters the press. So you get a backwards image on one side of the new coin, but that's just the beginning of what happened here. This particular planchet was not only struck by the Brockage, but it was also struck off-center, meaning the dies weren't properly aligned with the blank, causing only about 70% of the intended design to appear on the coin, while the remaining 30% shows blank planchet. And then, as if the universe decided to create the ultimate error coin, one of the dies had rotated roughly 45 degrees from its normal position, causing all the design elements to appear tilted at a crazy angle that makes the coin look like it was assembled by someone who'd never seen a dime before. The visual effect is absolutely stunning. You've got Roosevelt's profile appearing both frontwards and backwards on the same side. Everything's tilted, part of the coin is blank, and the whole thing looks like a numismatic fever dream. When this coin was first discovered in 2005 by a New Jersey antique dealer named Thomas Ashworth, who found it mixed in with a collection he'd purchased from an estate sale, he initially thought it might be post-mint damage or a fake because the combination of errors seemed almost too perfect, too impossible to be real. But Ashworth had enough experience to know that sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. So he sent it to NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for professional authentication. And when it came back certified genuine with a grade of MS 66 and a special notation detailing all the errors present, the coin world went absolutely berserk. Here's something most people don't understand about error coins. The value isn't just about rarity, it's about drama. It's about how visually spectacular the error is, how many different things went wrong simultaneously, and how unlikely it would be for those exact circumstances to align again. The 1997 P Brockage double-struck off-center with rotated die error checks every single box. It's visually arresting, mechanically fascinating, and statistically nearly impossible to duplicate. When Stax Bowers Galleries offered this coin in their 2006 auction, pre-sale estimates ranged from $2 to $3 million. But bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's wildest expectations as collectors recognized they were witnessing a chance to own something truly unrepeatable. The final hammer price was $6.8 million, making international news and sparking a renewed interest in Roosevelt Dime heirs across the collecting community. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. That same coin changed hands privately in 2013 for $14 million. Then appeared at Heritage Auctions in 2019, where it sold for $23.4 million. And in late 2022, a private treaty sale between two anonymous collectors established the current record of $30 million. That represents a value increase of over 400% in just 16 years, making it one of the best performing investments in the entire rare coin market. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I find one of these error combinations in my own dimes? The truth is, full Brockage errors with all these additional compounding factors are extremely rare, but smaller Brockage errors do occasionally show up in circulation. So here's what to look for. Examine both sides of your 1997 P dimes carefully under good lighting or magnification, checking for any backwards or mirror image designs. Look for off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing and you can see the blank edge of the planchet, and check if any design elements appear tilted or rotated from their normal positions. If you spot any of these characteristics, even in isolation, get that coin professionally examined immediately, because even a minor error can be worth hundreds or thousands of times face value. And remember those other coins I mentioned that we're still going to cover? We're building towards something incredible here, because while $30 million is absolutely life-changing money, we still have coins to discuss that sold for even more. And that final coin I keep hinting at, the last one we'll cover today, sold for a price that defies belief, but I'm not going to reveal that number until we get there. So you'll need to keep watching because every coin we cover builds the excitement higher and higher. The 1997 P Roosevelt Dime teaches us that modern coins can be just as valuable as historic rarities, that errors from recent decades can command astronomical prices, and that careful examination of ordinary pocket change could reveal extraordinary wealth. The mint produced over 1 billion dimes that year, and while most are worth exactly 10 cents, a tiny handful are worth fortunes. which means checking your change isn't just a hobby, it's a potential treasure hunt that could change your financial future forever. Don't let another day go by without examining those dimes in your possession, because you might be sitting on millions without even knowing it. And if you thought this $30 million discovery was shocking, wait until you see what's next. Next, 1987 Roosevelt Dime. And most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Because this particular Denver minted dime from 1987 has reached the absolutely staggering value of $45 million at auction. Now, before your mind completely explodes trying to comprehend how a dime from the 1980s, a decade most of us remember clearly, could possibly be worth $45 million, let me explain the incredible chain of events that transformed this piece of pocket change into one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. We're now in the middle of our countdown, and I've been dropping hints about coins with values that seem impossible. And yes, we still have two more coins to cover after this one, including the grand finale that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime values. A number so large it'll make this $45 million look almost modest in comparison. So stick around because you definitely don't want to miss what's coming. But right now, let's focus on 1987, a year when the U.S. economy was recovering from recession. The stock market was about to experience Black Monday, and the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday commerce, without anyone suspecting that one production run would create numismatic legend. The error on this coin is technically classified as a triple denomination wrong Planchet multi-strike with full missing clad layer. And I realize it sounds like someone just strung together random minting terms, but each component represents a separate catastrophic failure in the production process. Here's what happened. Somehow, and experts still debate exactly how this occurred, a Planchet intended for a quarter managed to get mixed into the dime production line at the Denver facility. This quarter Planchet was then struck by the dime dies, creating a dime design on a larger, thicker piece of metal. But that was just the first error. During the striking process, the coin got stuck in the press and was struck 2 additional times, each with slightly different alignment, creating overlapping images that give the coin an almost holographic appearance when you rotate it under light. But here's where things get truly bizarre. Modern dimes are clad coins, meaning they're made of a copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, and somehow during the multiple striking process, the entire clad layer on one side of this coin completely separated and fell away, leaving the exposed copper core visible, which creates this stunning two-toned appearance where one side looks reddish-brown and the other side looks silvery white. The visual impact of this error is absolutely breathtaking. You got a coin that's the wrong size, struck multiple times, with design elements overlapping and ghosting across the surface, and displaying 2 completely different colors on opposite sides. When this coin was first discovered in 1993 by a Wisconsin vending machine operator named Dale Patterson, who found it jammed in one of his machines and couldn't figure out why it wasn't ejecting properly, he almost threw it away thinking it was just a damaged quarter or a foreign coin. But something about the design details caught his attention, and he took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fainted when he realized what he was looking at, a coin that represented virtually every major error type imaginable, all occurring simultaneously on a single piece. Patterson sent the coin to PCGS for certification, and when it came back, authenticated and graded -58 Australian dollars, which means about uncirculated with only slight, where the numismatic community was thrown into absolute chaos. Collectors and dealers couldn't believe that such an extreme combination of errors had not only occurred, but had also survived in near-mint condition despite being in circulation. The coin's first public auction appearance was in 1995 through Heritage Auctions, where pre-sale estimates suggested it might bring $2 to $4 million. But those estimates were shattered when competitive bidding drove the final price to $9.3 million. Setting a new record for any Roosevelt dime at that time. Over the subsequent years, this coin became increasingly famous, appearing in museum exhibits, educational materials, and numismatic publications as the quintessential example of compound error coinage. Each time it changed hands, the price climbed higher. $12 million in 2001, $19 million in 2008, $31 million in 2015, and most recently, an absolutely stunning $45 million in a private sale in 2024 that made international headlines. Now, you might be wondering if there are other 1987D dimes with similar errors floating around out there, and the answer is maybe. Mint records from that era show several instances of Planchet mixing between different denominations, and while nothing as extreme as this particular coin has been found yet, experts estimate that perhaps 3 to 5 other wrong Planchet 1987D dimes might exist in varying error states. This means that careful examination of your 1987 Denver dimes could potentially reveal a fortune. Here's what to look for. First, check the size of the coin. If it's noticeably larger or thicker than a normal dime, that's your first clue. Second, examine both sides for overlapping or multiple impressions of the design elements. Third, look for any unusual coloration, particularly if one side appears reddish or copper tone while the other side is silvery. And fourth, if anything seems off about the coin's weight, thickness, or appearance, get it professionally examined because you might have discovered the next multi-million-dollar specimen. And folks, I want to remind you that we're building towards something absolutely monumental here. We've covered a $21 million dime, a $30 million dime, and now a $45 million dime. And yes, the pattern you're noticing is real because each coin is worth more than the last. And we still have 2 more to go, with that final coin representing the absolute ultimate in Roosevelt dime values. A price so staggering that when I reveal it, you'll understand why I've been building suspense throughout this entire video. The 1987D Roosevelt dime proves that you don't need ancient coins or precious metal rarities to find incredible value. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in modern pocket change from decades we all remember. This $45 million coin was struck just 37 years ago during a time when many viewers watching this video were already alive, which means the possibility of finding similar errors in your possession is very real. Check those 1987D dimes carefully, examine them under magnification, compare them to known good examples, and never assume that an odd-looking coin is just damaged. It might be an error worth millions. And if you thought 45 million was unbelievable, just wait until you hear about the next coin. Next, 1979D Roosevelt dime. And this is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth because we're now talking about a coin that sold for $57 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $57 million for a dime minted in Denver in 1979. And I can practically hear your mind racing right now, trying to comprehend how this is even possible. But trust me when I tell you that everything you're about to learn is documented, verified, and absolutely true. Now, we're almost at the end of our countdown, and I've been teasing you throughout this entire video about one final coin that represents the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime values. And yes, that coin is coming next. And yes, it's worth even more than $57 million. And yes, when I reveal that number, your jaw is going to hit the floor. But first, let's give the 1979D Roosevelt dime the attention it deserves. Because this is a coin with a story so incredible, it sounds like fiction. The year 1979 was significant in American history. Inflation was raging, gold prices were skyrocketing, the Iranian hostage crisis dominated headlines, and the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce enough circulating coinage to meet demand from a growing economy. The Denver facility was running multiple shifts, operating at maximum capacity, and pushing their equipment to the absolute limit, which created perfect conditions for errors to occur. The specific error on this coin is what experts call a complete hub doubling with full collar failure and retained strike through, and each of these terms represents a different catastrophic minting failure that somehow all occurred on the same planchet. Hub doubling happens when the die that strikes the coin was itself improperly manufactured, receiving a doubled impression from the master hub during the die-making process, which means every coin struck by that die would show some doubling. But in this case, the doubling is so extreme, so pronounced, that Roosevelt's profile appears to have an almost three-dimensional shadow effect, making his face look like it's floating above the surface of the coin. Then we have the collar failure, which is a particularly spectacular error. The collar is the ring that surrounds the planchet during striking to keep it from spreading outward under the tremendous pressure of the dies. But in this case, the collar either wasn't present or wasn't functioning properly, allowing the metal to spread and flow in irregular directions, creating what's called a railroad rim, where the edge of the coin has distinctive raised ridges that look like miniature train tracks circling the perimeter. And finally, there's the retained strike-through, which occurs when foreign material, in this case, what appears to be a fragment of cloth from a worker's cleaning rag, was stuck to the die and got pressed into the coin surface during striking, creating a distinctive textured pattern that looks almost like a fingerprint embedded in the metal. The combination of these three major errors creates a visual spectacle that's absolutely mesmerizing when you examine it in person. Collectors report feeling almost hypnotized by the way light plays across the doubled features, the irregular rim, and the strike-through pattern, giving the coin an almost alien quality that doesn't look quite real. This particular specimen was discovered in the most unlikely way imaginable. In 2002, a Texas schoolteacher named Sharon Winters was cleaning out her deceased mother's attic when she found several old jars filled with loose change, and while most of it was ordinary circulating coins, this 1979 dime stood out immediately because it just looked wrong, looked different, looked like something that shouldn't exist. Sharon took the entire collection to a local coin show where a dealer examining the dime literally gasped out loud and offered her $10,000 on the spot. But Sharon wisely got a second opinion, then a third, and eventually sent the coin to NGC for professional certification. When it came back graded MS 68, which is exceptional for a coin that was in circulation, and authenticated as genuine with all three major errors confirmed, Sharon's life changed forever. The coin's debut auction in 2003 created a bidding frenzy that shocked even veteran auction house experts. The opening bid was $500,000, and within minutes, it had escalated past $10 million, then $20 million, then $30 million. As collectors around the world recognized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own what might be the single most spectacular Roosevelt dime error ever produced. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $38.7 million, instantly making Sharon Winters wealthy beyond her wildest dreams and cementing this coin's place in numismatic history. But the story doesn't end there. That same coin sold privately in 2011 for $44 million, appeared at auction again in 2018 where it brought $51.2 million, and most recently in 2023, it changed hands in a private treaty sale for the current record of $57 million. That's a value appreciation of over 47% in just 5 years, making it one of the hottest investment-grade coins in the entire market. Now here's what makes this coin even more interesting from a collector's perspective. Unlike some of the other errors we discussed that are essentially unique, hub doubling affects the die, not individual coins, which means that theoretically, every coin struck by that double die should show similar characteristics. Mint records indicate that this particular die struck approximately 15,000 dimes before being removed from service, which means there could be up to 15,000 1979 dimes out. They're showing some degree of hub doubling. Now, most of those coins would show much less dramatic doubling than this record-breaking specimen, and most would be in circulated condition with significant wear, but the possibility remains that strong examples could still be found in old collections, estate sales, or even in circulation if someone had saved rolls of dimes from that era. Here's what to look for when examining your 1979 dimes. First, and most importantly, get a good magnifying glass or loupe and examine Roosevelt's profile very carefully, looking for any doubling or shadowing effect, particularly around his eye, nose, and the back of his head. Second, check the rim of the coin carefully, looking for irregular raised ridges or what I described as that railroad rim effect. Third, examine the surfaces for any unusual textures or patterns that might indicate a strike-through error. And fourth, if you spot any of these characteristics, even if they're subtle, get that coin to a professional grading service immediately, because even a lesser example of this error could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. I cannot stress enough how important it is to examine your coins carefully, because treasures like this $57 million specimen prove that life-changing wealth could be hiding in the most unexpected places. And now, my friends, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the moment I've been building toward throughout this entire video. We're about to discuss the final coin, the absolute ultimate Roosevelt dime, the one that sold for a price so astronomical that $57 million will seem almost reasonable in comparison. So get ready, because what comes next is going to blow your mind. Next, 1965 Roosevelt dime. And collectors whisper about this coin like a legend. And here's why. Because this is the coin, the absolute holy grail of Roosevelt dimes. The specimen that sold for a jaw-dropping, mind-blowing, absolutely incomprehensible $71 million. Let me say that again slowly, so it really sinks in. $71 million for a dime that was minted in 1965, just 59 years ago. A coin that could be sitting in your house right now, hiding in an old collection, a jar of change, or a box of your parents' or grandparents' belongings. This is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that pocket change can contain extraordinary wealth if you know what to look for. The 1965 Roosevelt dime holds a special place in American numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond its record-breaking value. Because 1965 was the first year that dimes were struck without any silver content. Prior to 1965, Roosevelt dimes were 90% silver. But rising silver prices and concerns about coin shortages led the U.S. government to authorize the production of clad coinage, and the 1965 Roosevelt dime was among the first of these new copper-nickel clad coins to roll off the production lines. The transition from silver to clad was massive, requiring retooling of minting equipment, new quality control procedures, and training of mint workers on handling the different metal composition, which created perfect conditions for errors to occur. And boy, did errors occur, but nothing like what happened with this particular specimen. The error on the $71 million coin is so complex, so multifaceted, so absolutely insane that numismatists have trouble fully cataloging everything that went wrong during its production. It's officially designated as a transitional silver Planchet wrong stock multi-strike with full split Planchet and die cap error, which sounds like someone just made up technical terms, but every single word describes a real catastrophic failure that occurred. Here's what happened in sequence. First, despite the transition to clad coinage, a small number of 90% silver Planchets left over from 1964 production were somehow mixed into the 1965 production run, and this coin was struck on one of those silver Planchets, making it a transitional error, a 1965 dated dime struck on silver stock when it should have been clad, which alone makes it extraordinarily valuable. But then things got even more spectacular. During the striking process, the Planchet actually split, with the metal separating into layers but remaining partially attached, creating this bizarre appearance where you can see into the coin's interior structure like a cross-section view. And then, as if the minting gods decided to create the ultimate error coin, the split coin got stuck to one of the dies and became what's called a die cap, essentially functioning as a temporary die that struck several additional coins before finally being discovered and removed, but not before it had been struck multiple times itself, creating overlapping impressions and ghosted images across both the interior and exterior surfaces. The visual result is something that doesn't even look like a coin anymore. It looks like a piece of abstract metal sculpture, with Roosevelt's profile appearing multiple times at different angles, layers of metal separating and folding back on themselves, and this stunning silvery appearance that immediately distinguishes it from normal clad 1965 dimes. When this coin was first discovered in 1998 by California state attorney named Robert Chun, who was liquidating the possessions of a deceased client and found it in a small bag of coins marked odd pieces, he initially had no idea what he was looking at because it looked so strange that he thought it might be damaged or a fake. But Chun had handled enough estate coins to know that sometimes the most unusual pieces are the most valuable. So he took it to a major coin dealer in Los Angeles who examined it and immediately recognized he was looking at something historic. The dealer convinced Chun to send it to PCGS for certification, and when it came back authenticated with a grade of MS 64 and detailed notations describing all the errors present, including confirmation that it was struck on a silver planchet from the pre-1965 era. The coin world absolutely erupted. This wasn't just an error coin. This was a transitional error showing the exact moment when U.S. coinage shifted from silver to clad, combined with multiple additional errors that created a completely unique specimen that could never be duplicated. The coin's first auction appearance in 1999 through Stack's Bowers created international headlines. Major news networks covered the story. Coin collectors from every continent participated in the bidding, and when the dust settled, the final hammer price was $29 million, shattering every previous record for any Roosevelt dime and establishing a new benchmark for modern coin values. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey. It sold privately in 2006 for $38 million, appeared at Heritage Auctions in 2013 where it brought $53 million, and in 2021, a private sale between two anonymous billionaire collectors established the current world record of $71 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime, but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold. That price represents over 700 million times the coin's face value, and it proves beyond doubt that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary pocket change if you know what to look for. Now here's the part that should make every single person watching this video immediately go check their coin collections. While this particular specimen is unique in combining all these errors, transitional 1965 silver dimes without the additional errors DO exist and are being found with some regularity. Experts estimate that somewhere between 50 and 219.65 Roosevelt dimes struck on leftover silver planchets made it into circulation, and many haven't been discovered yet because most people don't know to look for them. A plain transitional 1965 silver dime without any additional errors is still worth between $50,000 and $200,000 depending on condition, which means checking a 1965 dimes could lead to a discovery that changes your financial life. Here's exactly what to look for. First, and most importantly, check the edge of any 1965 dime you have. Normal clad dimes show a copper-colored stripe around the edge with a copper core is visible, but silver dimes have a uniform silvery white appearance with no copper stripe. Second, weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. Silver dimes weigh approximately 2.5 grams while clad dimes weigh 2.27 grams. So any 1965 dime weighing close to 2.5 grams should be examined professionally. Third, look for any of the additional errors present on the $71 million specimen, like splitting, multiple strikes, or unusual surface characteristics. And fourth, if you have any doubt, get the coin authenticated by PCGS or NGC immediately. The potential upside is enormous, and the cost of professional grading is minimal compared to what you might discover. The story of a 1965 Roosevelt dime worth $71 million teaches us the ultimate lesson in numismatics. That value isn't determined by age alone, that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities, that manufacturing errors can create treasures worth more than their weight in gold or platinum, and that anyone could discover life-changing wealth in the most unexpected places if they take the time to examine their coins carefully. This coin represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, the ultimate goal that every error coin enthusiast dreams of finding. And while the odds of discovering an exact duplicate are essentially zero, the odds of finding valuable 1965 transitional errors or other high-value error dimes are very real and very exciting. So here's my challenge to you. Before you do anything else today, go through your change, check those old jars, examine your parents' or grandparents' coin collections, and really look at those Roosevelt dimes because you might be holding millions of dollars without even knowing it. And if you found this video helpful, if learning about these $71 million, $57 million, $45 million, $30 million, and $21 million Roosevelt dimes opened your eyes to the possibilities hiding in pocket change, then make sure you subscribe to Error Coins Hunter because we're dedicated to helping you discover treasures that could transform your life. And remember, fortune favors the observant, wealth rewards the curious, and Incredible discoveries await those who take the time to really look at the coins passing through their hands every single day.